Well, good evening to you folks. How are you? It's good to see you, and it's good to be seen by you. Welcome to the show. And you know, they say only love can make it rain, but I happen to think it's an occluded front and lowering barometric pressure that does it. But what do I know? I'm not a weatherman. I am Bill Sylvie, aka the Dungeon Delver, coming to you live, loud and clear on a really special Thursday evening tonight, folks. We have got a couple of awesome guests waiting back in the green room, just lounging and relaxing back there. And they're going to be out here in just a few minutes to talk some Greyhawk with us. But let me ask you a favor. Let me impose upon you. If you haven't already done this, would you please do me a favor? Just a little one, just a small thing I ask. Would you click the subscribe button and click the bell icon for notifications? Now, whether you're subscribed already or you are doing that and clicking the subscribe button, when you go, apparently there's like levels of notifications now. Make sure you're fully notified for this stuff, like so you get the info, the 411, I think is what the kids today say, on the live streams, the short form videos, the YouTube shorts, the longer stuff that we do, all the cool stuff that we do, you will be notified about, and that will be really awesome, and I will greatly appreciate it. And of course, tonight's show is brought to you by me, of course, and the Delver's Dungeon. Check out our merch links. They're down in the description below. Get yourself some awesome Delver's Dungeon merch. I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, Dying Breed Tabletop has that awesome Tracy Lesh designed Delver's Dungeon logo on a piece of clothing. I could be wrong about that. Dying Breed, you correct me if I am not right, but it's a beautiful piece. You should check it out. The link to the store is down in the description. And of course, Crom, the character record organizational manager. It is the last word in first edition AD&D character creation and curation. No more sifting through piles of papers and what did the DM tell me last week, and I'm just going to write down 2500 XP, and oh wait, did I get level drained, and when I aged, did that lower my strength and raise my wisdom? What happened? Crom handles all of that, and folks, it's available for all major platforms. It's available for Windows 8, 8.1, 10 and 11, 32 or 64-bit, runs on Mac OS through Wine, runs on Linux through both Wine, and I am told, now I'm no Linux guy, but I am told it runs on Proton through Steam. So you can actually add it to your Steam library. How cool is that? Your friends are like, hey, what's Bob doing? He's playing something called Crom. So you can check that out. And we do have a few physical copies left in stock. Now, Crom, if you shoot me an email, I'll tell you all about that, for purchase of Crom, and my email scrolling across the bottom there. Also, speaking of stuff and merchandise, we did some drawings this week. We had some folks win copies of Dragon magazines. We had some folks win, what else? We gave away a copy of Rogues Gallery. That's right, that very cool TSR collection of characters and notable characters from TSR history. And we gave away a starter quick play from Free RPG Day of Tunnels and Trolls Adventures. And I think also, yes, on was it Monday, or was it no, it was last week, we gave away a copy of G123 and D1 and 2 as a set. So all of that stuff, I'm mailing all that out. And if you missed out and you're like, hey, I want to get in on possibly winning some of that foot thick brick of swag of Dragon magazines and classic modules and new stuff, new eclectic cool RPGs that Bill's got over there. Here's how you do that. Support us on Patreon or support us as a YouTube member. You don't have to do both. Whatever, listen to your heart, whatever speaks to you the most, and your name will go in the hat if you are here on the days we do the drawings, which are always Mondays, sometimes Wednesdays. So we'll put your name on a spinner and we'll spin it. It's fun. It's fun. And then you can win an awesome prize, something out of the prize box. And you don't even have to clean up your group table. All right. So enough of that silliness, on to serious silliness. I don't think I really have to state what my favorite campaign setting in Dungeons and Dragons is. Of course, you all know, yes, that's right. It's Dark Sun. No, I'm kidding. It's Greyhawk, of course. Yes, I am repping. I have it's behind y'all's comments, but there's my World of Greyhawk set, and there's my Greyhawk Folio set. And so it was really, really, really cool. So I'll tell you guys real quick how this started. I talked on the live stream about my concerns for MELF'S Guide to Greyhawk, which of course, Luke Gygax said, I'm writing a 5e Greyhawk product. And I was like, okay, I don't know what, I mean, when you say Greyhawk these days, are you talking supplement 1 Greyhawk? Are you talking Greyhawk Folio, gold box set, some combination of the 3? You including Carl Sargent's work? You talking about Ivad the Undying? You talking about Greyhawk Wars, Greyhawk Plague? What do you mean when you say Greyhawk? Where is the line? And as luck would have it, one of our guests tonight was sitting out there in the comments, and he popped in straight away and left a comment and said that Luke is pushing this back to 569 in the Greyhawk calendar. And that is so cool. So Stephen, of course, and I started chit-chatting about that, and he talked a little bit about it at the GWOC, the Great Underground Online Gaming Convention. And I got excited for it, guys. I'm guardedly excited for what's next in Greyhawk, because it's going back to the original. Now, rules schmools, guys, because remember this. A lot of you guys who carried on past first edition into second edition, did you sweat having to change stuff in the folio or the box set to keep Greyhawk alive in second edition or third edition, or dare I say even 4 or 5? No, you didn't, because you were intrepid. So I think this is something that is of supreme importance to everybody who loves Greyhawk, old school, new school, it doesn't matter. But one thing that I have done is I've run my mouth way too long. So I'm going to bring our guests on. Take a sip there, and a little cold water there. I'm going to bring our guests on, and I'm going to let them talk all about it. And guys, if you have a question, please just pop it in the chat. I will be watching, and we will get your questions to our guest tonight. First up, I think we're going to do this in reverse order. I'm going to welcome someone who's, even if you don't know them by face, you know them by reputation, because her map work is extraordinary for Greyhawk. So everybody, please put your hands together for Ann B. Meyer. Ann, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad to have you here. And of course, when Stephen kind of gave out that info as he could, he reached out to me and said, hey, I bet I could get some people who are working on this to come on the show, and we'll all have a talk about it. And I was like, that sounds really cool. So I'm really super happy you're here. So thank you for
I realized I forgot an A there when I typed in my name. So there we go.
Oh, okay. Well,
okay. No worries.
I didn't know if you preferred Ann or Anna. I didn't know if that was a conscious choice. So we'll go with Anna.
Oh, no
and before he gets bored and starts looking for loose change in the couches of the green room.
Yeah.
let's go ahead and bring in Stephen Radney-Macfarland, who's also working on Mel's Guide to Greyhawk. Stephen, hello.
I was just about to paint a miniature, right?
Oh man, I interrupted you.
No, that's all right. I said I would come on, so miniature painting can be.
Okay, so pop quiz real quick before we get started. Is it insulting or not if a player at your table starts painting a miniature while you're playing D&D and they're waiting on their turn? Anna, go.
No, I would like that. And that
Okay.
if players do, especially if they do something that is kind of related to fantasy or the game, I have no problem with it. I think it's great. If I can yell, poke them, and when it's their turn, fine. Yeah.
All right, Stephen, your take?
Insulting, no. They might get into a lot of trouble depending on where we are in the adventure. If we're just doing some exploration and it's kind of slow, that's one thing. But if they're trying to do it in the middle of combat, especially if I'm the DM, that you got to pay attention.
And my jam is, if I got miniatures and Dwarven Forge already out on the table, please don't lean over it and paint. That's it. Please, you can turn away, put a drop cloth on your line. Yeah. But anyway, so welcome to your both. Thanks for being here. So I'm just going to throw this out here, and again, audience, guys, if you have any questions for Stephen or Anna, I want you to let me know. I'm keeping an eye on the live chat. But tell us what you can, that you might not both be sealed by the mystical NDA spell, about Melf's Guide to Greyhawk and what you're doing on it.
Stephen,
all right, Anna, you go ahead and start. Like, okay. I want to hear the project in general from Anna's point of view first.
Okay, yeah. So, my role is to make the maps primarily, but also help out a little bit with other stuff and consulting and so on and so forth. So I can tell a little bit about the story, since I know Luke a little bit because I'm helping him run Gary Con and stuff. So I've been on this project for a bit over 2 years. I think Stephen is also one of the early ones, so to speak. So then we brought in others. So for me, this have been a kind of a little bit of a roller coaster going back and forth, because as the project have kind of taken shape. And one of my key bits, and we get back to that later, is that while most of the writers and so on, and a lot of the other people who do art and stuff, they concentrate on the key bits of an adventure and the module and the source book. But my job is primarily doing the big picture, the big maps and stuff. So my job primarily is to fill in the blanks, like fill in the pieces between the big stuff. So that means that I have to start early and work on it before the text is even written. So that is one of in this case, it's actually a lot easier because Greyhawk is a known entity, and I've been kind of virtually living there for well over a decade, for several decades, and working with it every day. So that's the easy part. The hard part comes down to when we get into the details, and you have to start coordinating, and the text starts coming in online, and people say, oh no, there's a river there, and there should be a river there, or whatever. So there's stuff like that comes in. But my role is primarily to do the big map, heraldry, and some other stuff like that, and then help out with the backstories and the lore and stuff like that. So we have meetings like every week or so with some of the other people on the team, so we go over things and so on. Yeah.
Right on. So relative to that, I did want to ask, obviously you're working from that great Darlene map, going forward when you're doing the cartography.
Mm-hmm.
But as you're taking the notes from the writers and other project folks, have you, like, do you find yourself in situations ever where it's like you've drawn the map thus and they describe the environment differently, so you have to go back and change? Okay.
Yeah. That happens in every project, and and that's why, and that is the hard part, is that because we're working in so different mediums and in different time frames. So that's the hard part when you do big commission work like this, is that first I have to work on kind of a basic outline and an idea, because the text is usually not even written. And then halfway through, then we realized that someone said, no, we want this there, because that's for the story. And that's when it comes. So I usually yell and scream and say, okay, now we nailed this feature. Now we can't move mountains from now on, so to speak, and so on and so forth as we move forward. And so it's a kind of a go back and coordination. But I've had to start over and redone stuff halfway through projects several times, and paid over the ugly bits and stuff like that to do it, because that's the key bit. Because what I basically provide the canvas for the story to play out on. And it's kind of hard to make the canvas or the base picture when the story hasn't been written yet. So it's kind of a back and forth. Yeah.
Right on. And is just between you and me, is Stephen the one causing the problems? You can tell
no,
me.
not he's the one that causes the least problems, because the introduction is usually the easy bit in that sense. It's the source books that are the difficult bit, the history, the long epic journeys and stuff like that, the big political picture, demonic invasions, someone burns down the whole area and stuff like that. These are things that affects me.
Okay. All right. Well, you're off the hook now, Stephen. So I guess you can go ahead and tell us what you're doing.
Sure. So, well, to sort of riff a little bit on what Anna was just talking about, one of the great things about this project is it takes place primarily in a part of the world where she had already done a bunch of work, right? And so while the maps that will end up in the book are going to be different, it's only because Anna's sort of refining her craft. And so my main part of the book is the adventure. And I guess we could give a little bit of a hint. So imagine the whole thing is sort of a West Side Story feel. And you've got the shields and the horns, and they're fighting. That's I'm going to go with that. But yeah, so you know, the goal of this thing, which has shifted a little bit, but not a whole lot from the start. About, I don't know, a little over 2 years ago, I was sitting on the beach in the Washington Shore, playing miniatures with a bunch of friends in this nice outing. And I got a message from Luke, and I'm like, I don't know, hey, I've got this project. Let's talk about it. And I'm like, well, I don't know what my phone bars look like here. Like, maybe we can wait till the week. And then the next thing, Luke's calling me on the phone. And luckily the bars were working fine. So I'm trying to talk to Luke, get off the phone so I could go play miniatures with my friends. And but yeah, he tells me what he wants to do. He wants to do Greyhawk books. In the beginning, I think it was going to be Adventurers Guild. He didn't know. Yes. He went back and forth. He really wanted to do Greyhawk Melf books, and he wanted to play within the world of Greyhawk, and he had heard some scuttlebutt that WotC was going to open up the world of Greyhawk, and he was very excited, and he wanted to know if I would be the primary adventure writer for this thing. And I'm like, yeah, twist my arm. I love playing in Greyhawk. Have since I was a kid. And so over that next 2 years, you know, we worked on it. It sort of became dormant. I would kick Luke in the ass and go, hey, if this is not going to be a thing, I've already written big chunks of this adventure. I've actually got ideas for prequels. Like, do you mind if I do it by myself if we're not going to do this book? And then it all starts cascading. The next thing we know, it's actually going to be a book produced by WotC, which I was like, what? And I'm like, no, you're shitting me, Luke. And he's like, no, really. And then, you know, it gets announced and everything else. And so, yeah, it's been kind of a roller coaster of a ride. This thing that I thought would be just a hell of a fun, you know, hopefully people would like it project to I wouldn't say more pressure, but definitely the stakes are higher.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where we're sitting right now. But as far as I have a whole bunch of goals as an adventure writer. I want to be, of course, true to the setting. I want to create adventures that have, a nice thorough story that, of course, with bits and pieces that GMs can really make their own. I want to give a toolbox for individual DMs to kind of run the story that they want to run within the signpost of, hey, this is the adventure. Here's the through lines. I'm going to give you scenes and events. You're going to decide, how to modify the scenes for your own play style. The events are there as a toolbox for you to, grab this one because it feels cool and maybe ignore that one. And create a really sort of compelling play experience for your own GM. And I tend to think that Greyhawk really lends itself to that kind of design structure as well. And then, then there comes the whole thing that Greyhawk, people who are really, really, really into Greyhawk, they can't agree on what goes on their pizza, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a fact. And then you've got sort of, I would say, kind of in a multiverse sort of style branch and timelines. You've got the Sargent timeline that then was picked up by Living Greyhawk. You've got the Gord the Rogue novel timeline, some of which is open to us, some of which is not, right? Mm-hmm. You've got people with their own thoughts on what individual statements and obscure lore means. And so, we had long discussions and still have kind of long discussions on what we're going to do with that, with the overriding goal that Luke wants to present. And I absolutely agree with him on this. He wants to present the Greyhawk that his father presented to him through his experiences and move forward the timeline from that basis in 576 common year forward, primarily sort of in Melf's gaze, I guess you could say, right? Melf is a follow through all of this. What Melf is doing through this, and that's of course led us to do all sorts of things. Like I'm in the middle of rereading the Gord the Rogue novels. I'm in the middle of Sea of Death right now, of which I had this really weird epiphany. I'm like, so the Sea of Death is the first one where it lists the editor, and the editor is of course the tremendously talented. Passed a couple of years ago, Kim Mohan, who was a dear friend of mine. And I came out of that with, I'm like, the prose got so much better. I'm like, I had some conversations with Kim about that, but like the writing in Sea of Death, in my opinion, is so much better than the writing in Artifact of Evil. And I don't know, why that is, and it's rushed and everything else, and it just flows better. And the story, in my opinion, the story is presented, and I'm like, man, I see Kim in here, and so while that lore is not open to us, like the tone of Greyhawk and that sort of tone, especially presented in Saga and Old City and Sea of Death, Gary's stuff, is really what we're trying to like latch onto. We want to create this old school Greyhawk feel with its wonderfulness and its weirdness, and I know that's always my goal in doing that, and I think that's the goal of all of us throughout. We want to not only present something that we think that the old grognards are going to like, but present it in such a way where I think the younger audience will sort of go, oh, this is what Greyhawks, this is cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like this. I always just thought it was kind of weird, stodgy stuff, but there's actually something here that's fun and exciting and something I can put my players through. So that's our kind of balancing act.
Yeah, and then try to do it with with the modern budget, modern technology, and the modern production budget and methods too. So yeah.
Well, that's excellent. Now, you know, there's much talk about going back to, and I said 569 is 576.
Yeah, 576. Oh, one little
570.
correction. It's not a cat. I have a little doggy. Yeah, he's a mini pincher. So yeah, people said
doggy.
that
Okay.
cute kitty, but it's it's a little mini pincher.
Okay.
Yeah.
But my wife's cat used to be my co-producer, but she doesn't like hanging around back here anymore. Yeah. So, but I'd see her walking back and forth across the camera sometimes.
All dogs are basically cats, and cats are so that's my Ron's
So,
I love cats too.
Going back to a pure 576, if we can use that to mean things, not the Carl Sargent timeline, not even Gary's timeline, where he spoiler alert, you've read the novels before, right, Stephen? Yeah, boom. But going back to the TSR era timeline and sticking strictly with that, did either of you guys, as you've been working on this, did you find yourself hitting a wall of like, I'd really like to do X with the Horn Society doing Y, but that's not happening because they're not doing Z, and that's not gonna.
I would say, at least as far as I go, no. I mean, because in a lot of ways, right, I still go through and I read the Carl Sargent stuff, and of course the wonderful Greyhawk Gazetteer, done by Gary Guy, or done by Eric Mona and Sean Reynolds and all of the other wonderful talents that are on that book. I sort of kind of take a look in the same way, in a similar way, probably not the same way, that the Disney's kind of done with the Star Wars franchise. There's cool stuff in Legends. And we're going to kind of grab some of those things without being pulled into it. So I'll give you an example. Is part of this adventure, you end up going into Deep Shuttle Delve, which is a Carl Sargent creation. Right? Okay. But it's, we will definitely put cool stuff in there without changing the tone or being behooved to that timeline.
Okay. And question for Anna real quick. You mentioned the Greyhawk heraldry. Are you creating new heraldry for Greyhawk, or are you touching up the old heraldry?
I've done both. For my patrons, I've done both. I've touched up and done more detailed versions. First, I redid all the ones for my fan map for Greyhawk, and then I realized I added some, and then I also realized now I've worked with Photoshop daily, so I know how to make them look more like they would in reality. So I made like a real version of them. And then that became really popular. So I was like, okay, let's fill in the blanks. There's a lot of stuff that is written about in Greyhawk that doesn't have heraldry that should have heraldry. So I started to add heraldry as kind of a side hobby. And now I've done 500 pieces of Greyhawk heraldry. About 150 or so are remakes of the ones that TSR and Wizard of the Coast have produced over the years. But I've also gone through the text and I've gone through the art, and I've found probably about 30 or 40 that are written about or hinted at or illustrated one way or the other, and I've added them into it. And then I've done a lot, meaning I've run a Shieldlands campaign for the last 5-6 years, so that was kind of cool. I've been running a game in the area that the first Melf guide will be set, or even before I was on the project, so to speak. So I had probably about 40 or 50 pieces of heraldry I did for that campaign. I haven't published all of them to my patrons. So and there will be a number of additional ones for this book. I don't know how many yet. We'll see. it both depends on what should go in there, and then it's up to how much room there will be on pages and stuff like that too. So yeah, but
Oh,
definitely,
excellent.
there will be a bunch of them. So
Excellent. That's wonderful. So, now, for audience members, I did link Anna's Patreon. It is down in the
Yeah.
channel description. If you want to jump in on that and go check that out, please give it a look.
yeah, and it's all the
Cool
Greyhawk stuff that I've done prior before doing this book is Creative Commons. So you can download it, you can use it, you can share it, you can alter it. You don't have to pay me a penny for it. So it's all available to use as a raw material for your own Greyhawk games.
Excellent, excellent. So a few questions have rolled in. Let's see. Guy Fratellone says, any of the old wizards from the Circle of Eight still alive? Any new mages fill their spots in any new type of magic?
It's 576, so they should.
It's fine. They're all still there.
Yeah.
Still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got Big B Mordenkainen with hair. By the way, that you better give Mordenkainen.
I kind of like bold Mordenkainen. I kind of like that one. That was I like that illustration of the living Greyhawk.
It looks like insane from Crash Bandicoot, but horses. For
well, I mean, Morty with hair is basically just Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Dying Breed Tabletop says, question for both guests. What do you think the effect of a return to Greyhawk means for the game in general? Do you think this is a pivotal moment or sort of art for art's sake?
I have one. Oh, sorry, go on.
Yeah. No, go.
I'm going to say I have one general point that I think that I think will be a turning point. For the last decade, we've had basically settings haven't been a concept in D&D or Wizards for quite a while. There've been D&D and it's been the rule set and adventures and stuff have been going on, but the concept of settings and like real places that we go in and we center our adventures and our campaigns on a specific setting, that hasn't, for obvious reasons, meaning in the 80s and then especially in the 90s, that was the huge thing. You were a Dragonlance fan, a Forgotten Realms fan, a Greyhawk fan. And a lot of business-minded people said, no, don't silo your customers into these, because then the Greyhawk fans only buy Greyhawk products.
Well, a lot of business people, you mean Ryan Vance.
Yeah, there were some business people who said that. But now we've had a decade when that has been the hard kind of execution to have D&D and not brand them. Settings have disappeared. Now I think settings are on the back, coming back again. They are on the return. So,
that's a
help in that.
That's a constant argument that me and my friend James Lauder have.
Yeah.
If you don't know Jim, he was very influential, big editor and contributor to the novels back when D&D novels were doing great guns. And he always makes the point, and I understand this point. I don't always agree with it, that it's the stories and the settings that are really sort of the undercurrent of the game.
Yep.
And as somebody who loves stories and definitely does narrative design, but is also a systems designer, I go, yeah, Jim, I really love tinkering with systems, be it D&D or other games. So I have my own bias there, but I think in a lot of ways, to give Jim some credit, he's right. Not only is setting a hell of a lot easier for, I would say, corporations, but let's forget them for a little while, artists to protect, right? You can't really protect game designs. They're procedures, and procedures are, at the best you can get a patent, and that's incredibly hard. And Wizards of the Coast did it once, and they probably shouldn't have been able to. But I would say if you're really serious about putting a mark in fantasy, it's settings that is going to be really the sort of bread and butter.
Yeah.
Now, of course, we're playing in a setting that's owned by somebody else, but it's a setting that we all love, and we hope to present it in such a good way. So is it a pivotal moment, or just, what was the question again? It was asked if it was a pivotal moment, or
if it was just art for art's sake.
And I would say that until it reached the audiences, you can never tell which one it is. Like, even the artist can't tell which one it is. And so it could be a pivotal moment. I would love it to be a pivotal moment. But we don't know what pivotal moments are until it's hit the fan base and the users, and they decide. So personally, the work that I've put in the project and the work that everybody else has put in the project, and we'd love this to be a pivotal moment, but it's not us to decide. It's going to be the fan base and the players and the people who read the final work and decide whether or not it's a pivotal moment. But we're rooting
right, because you guys could wake up after the first quarter, this thing is out, and Wizards of the Coast is like, here's your contract for a new World of Greyhawk box set. Get to work.
Right.
Which is something I think people would certainly not hate to see.
Mm-hmm.
But
a box set, or a Netflix special, or who know, you never know.
Yeah.
Being a part of sort of fiction, no matter what kind of fiction, game fiction, any kind of fiction, as an artist, you can only put in what you can, your best, and it's really for the audience to decide where that goes. And then, of course, the artist then goes along for the ride. It's kind of like, I'm sort of reminded of one of my favorite sort of fantasy science fiction novelists is Jeff Vandermeer, right? The guy's written amazing stuff, and he did the Southern Reach trilogy, which is now more than a trilogy, and it eventually got made into Annihilation, a movie with Natalie Portman and other really fine actors. It's a fantastic story. But there's always a part where, and if you read Annihilation in the Southern Reach trilogy, you get a similar story, but it's very different in the movie, because when something becomes successful, it sort of branches out into weird areas. So, and you can grumble about that, or you can embrace it and everything else. I would love to be able to, in some ways, kick off, be part of a team that kicks off a new love and a new sort of look at Greyhawk. But we don't get to make that choice. It's going to be everybody else that does it. And then we get dragged on for the ride, or we go, that was a cool project. I really loved working with those people. Let's work on that project comes along.
Right on. So a question then, really, and either one of you guys can answer this, but I'll throw it over to you first, Anna. When you're pulling all those bits of information in, like, there's so much Greyhawk that is tucked away in the tiniest of places. Like Rob Coates has got a great article on the wolf nomads in like one of the teens issue of Dragon, like Dragon 18 or 19 or something like that. I think it was still the Dragon back then. You've got stories that Gary submitted to fanzines that you can't get for love or money. if you go looking on, there's virtually nothing of the world of Greyhawk in Supplement 1 Greyhawk. There's that one
it's mechanic
weird
stuff, not lore.
one illustration of the great stone enigma of Greyhawk, and that's it. And I even know one, Gary, when I interviewed him back in 2003, was it 2002? mentioned that the movie treatment that he was working on would have had a portion of it take place in Greyhawk and something to do with the Rod of Seven Parts. I mean, there's so many pieces of things like that are scattered hither and yon.
Yeah.
Where do you like draw that hard line and say, look, this is what we're working with. That's neat that, you know, Ernie got a mention in a room on level 13 of the Castle Greyhawk dungeon, but we've got to draw the, is it just what's here and here? Is it here and Dragon Magazine? What is your praxis?
For my fan map project, so to speak, I try to make like a best version of it, to be inclusive rather than exclusive. So for that project, I always try to make a version that includes as much as possible. And since I work in a much higher detail, and the new generation of maps, we'll talk about them later, I'm working in a way better detail, but that means that there's more room for stuff. So my kind of motto has always been to include rather than replace, so to speak. So if there's even fan stuff, since I've been having my dip my finger in the Greyhawk community and fan community for almost 3 decades, or at least a bit over about 25 years, since around 2000. That means that I've had a pretty good idea of what is popular and kind of accepted and liked in the Greyhawk community. So that I put in there on the map if it adds to the published lore, so to speak. And then I've actually been much harder on putting my own stuff on the map. So that's why I've released a campaign version of my map that I've scooted over and done my stuff, so to speak. But I try to really be inclusive rather than exclusive. And the other thing that most people don't realize is that I put much more emphasis on text sources rather than written sources before maps, because I've learned from working in this field for a bit over, for nearly 15 years, is that the text is the source. The map is something that is bolted on afterwards for most projects. So if there's contradictions between the map and the text, I try to stay truer to the text. And a lot of it, especially in Greyhawk, that has been published over half a century, there has been so many add-ons, changes, and so on. So you simply have to kind of pick some compromise in between. So you can't be true to all sources, because especially when it comes to distances. Some say, oh, it's just 1 day's ride. Another, they walked for three weeks to get there, and stuff like that. Someone says it's 2 miles, another one says it's 30 miles and stuff. So there's a lot of stuff like that. So I try to be inclusive and to kind of juggle together the geography so it works and it would fit in what we perceive as Greyhawk, so to speak. I want people who see my maps to understand, if they have seen the Darlene map and read the box set and stuff, they should feel like, this is more a detailed version of that is described in there. So yes. So those are my basic stuff, that kind of how I work. But now when I work on a commission, it becomes a little bit more strict, because we can only use official sources. We can't, if we put other stuff in there, we have to ask them for permission, and then we have to check it back again with wizards and others and make sure that project lead is aware of where we get stuff from, and so on and so forth.
And official sources become really sort of difficult too, right? Yeah. I mean, by official, we mean, like, here's the weird thing about it. Is by official, in a lot of ways, we mean owned by Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
And so, for instance, right, anything, well, there was, as Jolly and other people will talk about it. Like, for instance, I've got the entire early run of Dragon Magazine PDFs, because I bought the CD back in the day.
Same here. Yeah, I have every issue in PDF now. Every issue of Dungeon and Dragons.
Excellent.
Oh wow, that's I don't think I have every issue.
I worked in intelligence. I collected every fan site on the internet. The early days on the internet, I ran one of these trawlers and so that's why I got some camper vans, whatever that I have to get out of it.
Yeah, you go. I'm dropping by, and you're going to give me a flash drive. It'll be cool.
Yeah.
But you know, and so there's been large swaths of this project where I'm telling my computer search for this term through every single Dragon magazine within the files and stuff like that, finding kind of interesting things. And I know there was some talk by the rest of the crew. They were looking at the names of old minifig miniatures that are long out of print for inspiration on Hobgoblin and Orc Tribe names and stuff like that. Which, you know, and so in a lot of ways, we're searching everything. And of course, then we're going to make our own decisions about what comes in and what doesn't. As the guy writing the adventure, you know, one of the things that I try not to do with this is sort of cover same old ground. And so, you know, like keep the edifices there, but what is in the spaces in between? And so in the adventure, you're going to go into things that are definitely, at least in the first adventure, and we would love to do more of these. You know, we've got you know, plans to expand it out. We decided to start small. It's a level 3 to 5 adventure within a relatively small-ish area of Greyhawk, and all of the pieces are there. But you know, some of the fun part is what goes on in between. What are the new things that we can, new and interesting things we can present to people, right? So you're probably, in this book, you're not going to get a long sort of drawn out history of the Circle of Eight. You are going to find out new things about Melf. You're going to find out new things about the organization that he builds, especially before he starts working for the Circle of Eight. You're going to find out what he and his cohorts, and you get to be some of those cohorts, are doing within this kind of span of Greyhawk that we know Melf is there, but we don't know what he's doing. Well, you're going to get to be a part of that. And then we're going to introduce places in the world of Greyhawk that you have both seen and never seen. And you're going to meet people that you have heard of and have never heard of. Our definite goal is to expand upon the Greyhawk story within its bounds, rather than just giving you information that is already in your head canon or has been sort of affected by the head canon of others.
Right on. Now, and you were talking about sources, and I kind of tongue in cheek, I held up a copy of Quag Keep. I mean, I'm guessing this one probably didn't make the cut, right?
Not for this project, but I have a copy of it, and I've scanned a copy, so I've scanned all the novels, so I can search through them, and I have an Evernote database with over 20,000 articles in there, snippet of information of Greyhawk, so I can search through and find things, because that's putting the dots together. And both Stephen and me, we have the luxury of age, because we have been through Greyhawk. I think it would be impossible or not impossible, but much harder to come in now and to reread. I could sift through when it came out, meaning I started playing in 79, 80, so and I was part owner of a game store. So I had, when the TSR catalog came out, as it was there, was all these things. And once a month, there was a little box for me, so I could read through on my vacation every year and kind of get slowly into Greyhawk over the decades, so to speak, rather than having to shoehorn it all in and digest it now.
I just meant this as a joke, but the idea that some Andre Norton Quag Keep could get in there, that's
when I did cool. When I did Perlland, I read that book back in the day. Craft and stuff and other places I mentioned there.
This team is filled with Greyhawk nerds. Not only do you have Luke leading it, and Melf himself, who was there, on the ground when he was a kid, who definitely sort of, blazons the path. but the entire team, like, we will go back to and try to pull whatever's cool from any source, from anybody who has written from Greyhawk, or even stuff. I would say even stuff that we can't technically touch. At least the details of that's somebody else's work. We're not going to plagiarize somebody, but the tone and sort of the oomph of that kind of stuff. Like, we'll go through everything, and then of course we'll make it we'll make it our own, and we hope you love it.
Oh, excellent. So we got a few more questions here. Spaghetti West says, if the project is successful, what other book in Greyhawk would you love to see published by Wizards of the Coast?
Oh, here we go.
Well, we would like to publish 3 of these, and I know I have prequel adventures, one that is nearly all written, and the other one that's outlined. So we would like to continue on this. The journey from the beginning was, I think, the idea was a trilogy, and so I would like to. I've got ideas for that trilogy. I've got a big bad that I think is pretty cool, which no one's ever seen before, but definitely in the lore that I would love to write more of. I would love other people to come in and take sort of the beginning of the tone that we've done, be it individual GMs who decide to utilize I guess you could say the MELF timeline and write Adventurers Guild stuff. It opens it up for that kind of thing. I personally, I'd love to be in a vanguard of a new Greyhawk Renaissance, with MELF at the lead. Fucking crazy elf. And that would be awesome. So if we inspire others to come with us on this journey, I'm down.
Excellent. Anna, you want to field it too?
Yeah, I think there are 2 things I would love to see. Both of them will be coffee table books, like big tomes with pictures and beautiful art and stuff like that. But one I want to see, well, since I'm a cartographer, I would love to have an atlas of Greyhawk, so to speak, as a fantasy atlas. Like, that was the
full color version of, like, the Kryn.
Yeah, that was an atlas of Midgard, the world of Middle Earth. That was done for Tolkien back in the late 70s, so to speak.
Yeah, that was
that project. Revamp that project with today's technology and do it.
Yeah, that was
with the budget of today, so to speak.
Karen Wynn Fonstad, I think, was.
She did one, but there was also another one that was done with stories and stuff. And also, in a way, I'm kind of, I love maps and love making them, but in a way, that is something that I think each campaign should have their own map, so to speak, that suits their campaign and their version of Greyhawk. But I also would love to have a parchment tome with stories and rumors and stuff like that, so you can literally buy like a book from it can be published once a year. They should publish a leather tome, like from the Library of Realmord or something, with history, like the real in-game tomes of different parts of that, just old rumors and stories, and can be legends and stuff like that. They can even call it Legends of Greyhawk, and then fill kind of rumors and ideas and plots and stuff that you can read, be inspired, and put on your coffee table and have as an inspiration, so to speak. I would like to see a product like that. I think
I'd love to see MELF novels too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Luke should write them, because his relationship to Greyhawk is unique, because he was one of these early ones that played in Gary's personal campaign, which means
and his ranger skeleton is lying at the bottom of one of the spike pit traps.
Starved to death. Yeah, it was tough life. So,
It is so much fun, you know, if anybody who knows Luke Gygax, he's such a nice guy, and he's really kind of, you know, this sort of humble wealth of information. But if you know what buttons to push, he's fun to give a little bit of help to as well. Because he takes it so well. He's really, yeah, he's really a fantastic fellow.
Yeah. It was actually Heidi was on. I don't remember. Eric and Heidi have been on the show a lot, and she was telling me about Luke's Ranger biting the dust in Tomb of Horrors, and him like in tears. Please, Dad, let my Ranger be alive. You're like, no, you fell in the pit. Your character.
He's in good company.
Yeah, lots. I think that there's more dead adventurers than live.
Now he can write an adventure story going back and revive him or resurrect him again. Yeah.
There you go.
Here's an idea. Here's a lit RPG idea for Luke to grab, and total tongue in cheek, total just fun. Melf owns the Tomb of Horrors, and just have Melf just going through and having to deal with the Tomb of Horrors and eventually reaching the end. That's the ultimate revenge on his dad.
Mm-hmm.
Just did a real estate deal in the Medio jungle, bought an acre with a tomb in the middle of it. I've often said, look, if you've got characters that are strong enough to survive the Tomb of Horrors, you rock up on that thing with 300 followers, a small team of dwarven engineers, you peel the top of that hill off, and you treat it like Heinrich Schliemann going to town over an archaeological dig, and you're like, okay, team, check out that room over there. Don't touch anything in there. We'll bring the clerics in to remove curse on anybody who's feeling a little weird. Let's just keep this moving. You know, you don't play a Sarax game.
At PaizoCon, I read a version of Tomb of Horrors for using the Pathfinder rules. And I remember when I was preparing for it.
I'll forgive you.
I remember finding there is a pattern to the encounters, and if you can figure out the pattern, you can basically get through it on an easy path. And the pattern was something like 3, 2, 1, 4, something like, and it's all. And who knows? That was a long time ago. That pattern may have entirely been in my head, but I'm like, I think actually Gary put a weird pattern in this. I don't know if he did this intentionally or not, but.
I've had long talks with Paul Stormberg about the Gygax gambit, how he the at table sleight of hand. He'll make you think you're getting A, and you take A, and then you realize far too late that he had B hidden back here away from you. You know, he kind of offered you the illusion of choice in a particular situation. And the Tomb of Horrors is, without a doubt, the
or then there's
ultimate.
The famous Gygaxian screw, right? Which is replete in his adventures. It's all like, I am a grand adventurer and look at all the stuff I have. And the first encounter of the adventure is like, yeah, that stuff don't work.
Yeah.
It's
what is
dark, it's Land Beyond the Magic Mirror. It's all through Tomb of Horrors, right?
And I mean, it can be even subtle stuff like you Drelsna's sphere tomb, you know, like okay, she's gonna jump up and stand on top of her sepulcher. You maybe can have 4 people down there fighting her at once, maybe, because it's at the bottom of a perfect sphere,
right?
You know, and she'll just off with everybody's head. Next group want to come on down here? I can take care of y'all too. So since we've kind of skated this way, and I do want to talk more about broader details, but I've got to ask you this, Anna, favorite Greyhawk module and why? Go.
For me, must be Hamlet in a lot of ways, because it's the when it comes to adventure modules, it's Hamlet, because it's original Greyhawk. It's not shoehorned in. It was not written for a convention and then was shoehorned into Greyhawk afterwards. It's actually written for Greyhawk from the get-go. It's anchored in the setting. It's a sandboxy adventure, and I like sandboxes. I run that, it fits my play style. And it's also a very short module, so it's also kind of a good writing in that sense that it's small, compact, 16 pages. And it's a good introduction to Greyhawk, one of the best ever written, I think. Orlane is another one, but Orlane is not that much Greyhawk. Hamlet has Greyhawk, I mean, he has Cuthbert, has all sorts of stuff that is actually Greyhawk. It's in a classic old, kind of very original area of Greyhawk that a lot of other stuff is set there. So that must be the highest on my list.
Right on. And Stephen?
I'm going to say the whole Temple of Elemental Evil. Even though we can have a conversation about the elemental nodes, and
yeah, once you get down, then
that's. But just about every game that I've ever worked on, every either edition of Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder, or even Delve, is I end up running at least large sections of that adventure, saying if whatever system I'm designing, I can run this, my favorite adventure, in and not tear my hair out, I'm at least on the right path.
Well, I'm unfortunate. I'm going to break with the guests here. For me, it's S4, which should have been WG4. We all know that, right? But it's S4 and WG5. Lost Caverns of Sojkanth and Forgotten Temple of Tharizdun. I personally think they could have put those in a box and sold them as like a Greyhawk campaign set. I mean, the dungeon, I think it was Alan Hammock? No, I don't think it was Alan Hammock. But in the Wizards of the Coast Dungeon of Dread, I think it was Alan Hammock who wrote the intro for it. Said that this is a classic Gygaxian guilt treasure hole.
Yeah,
but Forgotten Temple of Tharizdun goes into that deep Greyhawk lore, and where you kind of, if you dig down past, it's goblins and it's giants and it's this and it's that, it gets back over to the Temple of Elemental Evil stuff. Like, wait a second, this isn't just goblins and giants and orcs and worshiping bad gods. There's something truly eldritch and horrible once you get all the way to the bottom.
I think I agree with you, and I definitely see your point. But I also think there's a bit of, I think in some ways Gygax and George Lucas are very similar people, in that I think that he made the Tharizdun is a later incarnation of the stuff he was fooling around with. It was a culmination where he's like, I've designed this, I've designed this, I've designed this, I've designed this. I need now something to kind of tie it all together, in the same way that, Luke Skywalker didn't start out as Darth Vader's dad or son, and Leia wasn't the sister. Those were emergent qualities that came up through the thing. I think, Tharizdun is definitely an emergent quality that came out. And then, of course, in the novels and everything else, he grabbed on it and sort of ran. And I am all for, I don't think anybody who designs a story or a setting or a menu, as you might say, they need to have all of the answers from the beginning. I know I don't. I love those emergent qualities that start to come out. It's one of the reasons why adventures are so hard, because you start off with the through line, and then you're like, this works with this, and this works with this, and this works with this, and this works with this. And you put those things in that people can find, that they feel really, I've got this old friend who told me a story that he went to A New Hope and he came out and his friend was studying German, and he goes, Darth Vader's Luke's father, right? Because he was fixated on the Vader aspect of it. And he wasn't right at the time, but he ended up being right. My friend was just blown away by that. But if he had listened to George Lucas's stories, it didn't start out that way. So I think in a lot of ways, yeah, I understand why you think that's true, but and it is true. That's your favorite kind of stuff. But
It's a bit like the players when you run a sandboxing campaign. The players tie together and they come up with all sorts of cool ideas, and then with yeah, that's a good idea. And then that becomes true.
and any good DM knows that you listen to your players,
Mm-hmm.
and when they come up with a thing that you're like, wow, geez, that's kind of better than what I came up with.
Exactly. Then you steal it
Yes.
right away. Yep.
Absolutely. When your players are sitting in there talking about, hey, wait a minute, what if that old book we found, and you know, Bill said there was an old moldy book, what if that means something? Start taking notes.
Yeah, exactly. So when your players sit there and just banter, well, don't rush them. Let them keep going, because that helps you a lot, so to speak. So don't try and rush the adventure.
Yeah, because when they're wrong, it's hilarious, and when they, you know, come across something, steal it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The players can delightfully be their own worst enemies there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they're so happy that we were right the whole time. It's like, yes.
Player paranoia can do more than the deadliest, most Rube Goldbergian traps. And I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm here for it. Let's see. And I think we kind of touched on this a little bit, but there was one more question here from Dying Breed, who said, the game has changed so much, especially in classes and other player options. Do you find it challenging to reconcile Greyhawk to accommodate modern rules, or has that fostered creativity?
I'm laughing because we had a discussion a few weeks ago about a class, and since a couple of people, I shouldn't mention name, are very into old schools, and then we have a couple other people in the team that are very well versed in modern 5e and whatever, and then we were like, oh, we need a class that could do this, and then there was a class, but that didn't cut it, and there was like we had some serious discussion on exactly this topic. How do we take old school feel and then put it in 5e or 5.5 and stuff? So that's definitely been, and thankfully, that's not my department. So I was listening in on the discussion and saw in our forums, saw the text and ideas and comments and stuff. So I'm glad I don't have to make these decisions.
We decided very early on in the process that we were going to present the world in basically an old school style. And so, like, for instance, one of the conversations we had is in the 2024-25 Dungeon Master 5.5, whatever the heck they're calling it right now, which is the rule set we're writing for, like primarily writing for. You know, there's a bunch of changes to various rulers and everything in Greyhawk. Are we going to embrace that, or are we kind of going to go our own way? Are we going to embrace some of the newer stuff? Are we kind of going to go our own way? And it was decided pretty early on we were kind of going to go our own way. We were going to use basically the gold box set as our standard for where the time was. That being said, because it's in the 5.5 rule set and everything else, that doesn't mean you can't bring those characters, right, of various, like, we don't want to tell the players what they can or can't do. We don't want to tell the GM what they can and can't do. We're presenting an adventure in a setting of a certain tone, and you can do with it what you like. That's one of the great things about role-playing games in general, and Dungeons & Dragons in particular. And so we are being quote unquote pure to the original setting, but at the same time, we're not going to tell you how to play your game. We're just, that's what we're presenting. That's what you're going to face. I was a big stickler on, and don't get me wrong, I like goblins and as fae and everything else, but I'm like, that really doesn't fit kind of original Greyhawk, right? Hobgoblins being fae. Do we really have to have it be fae? Like that was kind of, for me personally, that was sort of a bridge too far. And And does it really change anything of how you play the game? No. If you're like Steven's nuts and decide, he didn't put the Fey type in my hobgoblins and now I'm pissed off. Well, it's very easy for you to fix. The stat blocks aren't really going to change dramatically. But yeah, we want to present a setting that more closely adheres to a later time, using a rule set, which of course gives you all sorts of tools to play, whatever you want, including what some people I kind of laugh at, and it's like the menagerie, the zoo, and it's all like, well, Gygax had cat people too. It's an artifact of evil, right? They are there, and of course, as somebody who's been a DM since forever, there's always that one player who comes in and, I think my first thing is I want to play an Alcaric Elm, which was, a winged elfish race from the Best of Dragon magazine. I'm like, really? You gonna do? I really want to play this guy. And of course, there's lots of reasons why you want to play this guy. And did I say no? No, I said yes, because that's what a lot. Quite frankly, good GMs do is they make allowances for how their players want to create the game. Did I make life hard for that guy? You fucking bet.
I'll fly up to the roof. You get shot with arrows.
Right? Yeah.
I'm not just every spear throwing, every crossbow firing, every bow shooting monster in the room just fills you full of bolts.
But at the end of it, I've had players who want to play Driz clones. I've had players that want to play, the most broken of home, and a good GM will sit there and say yes, but, and then create fun. But yeah, the setting we are definitely putting forward, if you're like me, and whether or not you're a certain elderly age or not, and love that either the folio or that golden box set, yeah, you're going to like this.
Well, that is that's really cool. And it's like I was saying in the wind up, people who liked the second edition rules but wanted to keep playing in Greyhawk, it's not like it was a huge jump to take to do a little bit of adjusting in those sets, the little bit of mechanics that have to be done there, and just move forward. Okay, giants now have a D12 for hit dice, not D8, and so on and et cetera. And so that is that's the purview of the dungeon master to make adjustments like that. I did have a question for Anna, though, because this is something that has fascinated me about Greyhawk for decades, literally decades. I love the fact that in the folio set, it doesn't unfortunately get as big a picture as it should in the gold box set, but in the folio set, there's that image where it's like basically the Darlene map is 1/3 of the known world. There's it's like you're getting like 2 postage stamp size.
It's a quarter of a page where you can see more than the Darlene map. You can
see exactly
twice as much in every direction, so to speak. That's the only real map we had of Oeric, part of at least half the continent of Oeric. That is the continent that the Flanese is one part of, so to speak. That giant continent that covers a large part of the planet, until we got that infamous Dragon annual map from a few years afterwards, or probably 10 years afterwards or something, and that we now know was put together over a weekend and with not much afterthought or anything. And then, so we have 2 maps that are kind of official. One, TSR made that for Dragon Annual in like, what was it, 87, 88 or something like that.
It's a little more complicated. Character, the original, is set in Greyhawk.
It was originally intended to be set, but it was never placed there. So then it was shoehorned into Forgotten Realms later on. Yeah.
Right. And the chainmail setting is...
Exactly. Then you had in 3rd edition, you had the Sundered Empire, the Far West, and they did a map of that too. And in my opinion, and those 2 maps are some of the worst I've ever seen. And they are terrible cartography, in my opinion. They're both terrible.
Anna's throwing hands.
Yes, they're terrible for many reasons.
You said that.
And the hard thing, I've actually said we've had Chris Pramers and we've had Skip Williams on, and I've told them both without knowing to them on stream, said that was the worst cartography I've ever seen. I said, it was my art order that did that map, and it was like, so that was bad. So,
no!
So I've scolded people behind it, and
don't worry, Chris has a thick skin.
Yeah. He has. He's still giving me a hug when I see him at Gary Con. So
yeah.
So that's good. Yeah. But but also, and he kind of told the story behind the map, and it was they needed something put together. So I treat it as you would treat one of these old medieval ancient maps of the world, meaning it had very little to do with real geography, so to speak. Yeah.
There's definitely kind of, and I've come across this many times at both at Wizards of the Coast and elsewhere, is there's 2 definite ideas of Greyhawk. And one is the people who really love Greyhawk and really enjoy the lore and whatnot. And then there's other people that are all like, oh, isn't that world just has a bunch of names that, you know, my favorite adventures were put in. And I know Eric Monas told me funny stories when he was working on Living Greyhawk, and they were working on, because in 3rd edition, Greyhawk was the quote-unquote default setting. And there was a lot of that sort of idea that it's all like, oh, this is just a thing with a bunch of names and some gods, and we can just mix it around and everything else. And, of course, you don't tell Eric Mona that.
No.
He's arguing with you on internal message boards. And then all of a sudden, from somewhere deep in the bowels of WotC, Jonathan Tweed is, who is this Eric Mona fella? So there's definitely a bunch of people who are all like, oh yeah, Greyhawk, isn't that just a pretty map and a bunch of names? But we're definitely not treating Greyhawk like that.
Yeah, and that's one thing I the lore of Greyhawk is what I love, and it sounds like you guys are definitely adhering to this. Is it really? It really is a toolkit. Like there's people have asked me, like, yeah, but Bill, don't you want to run these great Forgotten Realms modules? Or isn't Dragonlance cool? And I'm like, they're cool, they're wonderful. I think they're extremely well crafted, beautiful pieces of art. But it's like having a show Bugatti with calfskin seats and clean carpets. It's like, I'm afraid to sit down in it. I'll get it dirty. It's like give me Greyhawk, give me a square body 85 Chevy pickup of a work truck of a setting. And that's what I love so much about Greyhawk.
Back in the day, being a young geeky man who had to explain to young women that I played Dungeons and Dragons and other kind of things, they would go, "Oh, isn't that satanic?" And I'm like, "Yes, no,
Awesome.
yes,
Yeah.
come over to my house, little one." And I'd be all like, "Dragonlance novel is great," because I just hand them a Dragonlance novel, and I'm like, "No, it's like this," and they would come away and like, "That was pretty good," and I'm like, "Here's another one." And there are definitely things that I like and dislike about the Dragonlance setting. But dollars for donuts, that original Forgotten Realms gray box, that thing is gold. There's it's different, but it's almost very Greyhawky. Like if you ever get a chance and you're feeling a bit nostalgic, find that gray box set and read it. It's got the same kind of magic in a lot of ways that the original Greyhawk stuff, just in an Ed Greenwood sort of flavor. And so yeah, like I always like the animosity, especially in the beginning between Greyhawk and Forgotten Realms. I'm like, they've got some really, like, they are the best traits of what I like about Dungeons and Dragons. Now, as it expanded to novels and all sorts of other stuff, you like, I understand people's trepidation about trying to leap on, especially in the 90s, like, oh, I want to learn about Forgotten Realms. Here's a pile of novels and and everything else, right? No, I understood that, but if you take that original Grey box set, it's some brilliant stuff. It's full of adventure. It's full of grit. It's full of, the kind of thing that I like in my fantasy.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, I kind of got to take the Clarkson route. It's like pointing at Forgotten Realms. I like this, and then over to Greyhawk. But I love this.
Right.
Yeah.
But I gotta be nice about it. I'm supposed to be sharing a hotel suite with Ed Greenwood at EggCon this summer.
Yeah,
so
I was going to say, now I'm friends with Ed Greenwood, and I was like, damn, why didn't I become a fan of Forgotten Realms? That's like, damn.
Yeah, Ed's so much fun. You're going to have a great time with that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's awesome. So yeah, but for me, sorry.
No, I was just gonna say for the audience, yeah. If he'll give me 10 minutes, I'll definitely sit down and we'll do a brief live stream.
He can go on until 6 a.m. in the morning and then go out and run a game. Yeah.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about. But I'm sorry, Anna. You go.
It's kind of, for me, it's kind of weird because Greyhawk was not because I fell in love because Greyhawk was special. Greyhawk was the only one back then. So it was simply because Greyhawk was there, so to speak. Meaning, for me, it was like when we had the first DMs that just ran some sort of like Tolkien-esque whatever because they only had the rules and no. So I was like, where do these stories come from? I didn't understand fantasy. I never read Tolkien or anything like that when I started playing D&D. So I had no idea I knew basically what a dragon was, but that was about it. I'd never heard about elves or halflings or any of that stuff. So I kind of got into it, and I was like, where do these stories come from? And then when the Greyhawk box set came out a couple of years later, and I saw it in the game store, and I started reading it, like, this is where the stories came from. So then I grabbed the box, and I loved the map and the heraldry, and then I went to Dubrovnik of all places on vacation in the summer, and I sat there and read, and it was the perfect place on earth to fall in love with a fantasy setting. So I simply started reading it. I was intrigued, like, oh, this is cool. You can do stuff with this. And then I stayed with Greyhawk, not because I felt that Greyhawk was better than Forgotten Realms or the other ones as they came out. It was simply laziness. I had invested and understood Greyhawk, so I just kept doing it. And of course, I know a little bit about the other ones, but I've just touched the surface compared to Greyhawk, so to speak. So it's laziness, and also because the Greyhawk community, but all the other communities are also fantastic. So it's basically, I've invested, and it's become, it's where I live. It's like, it's interesting to go on vacation occasionally, but home is best, so to speak.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's interesting to go on vacation, but home is best. Home is where the heart is.
Yeah. So when I run games, I run them in Greyhawk. I play in all sorts of other stuff, but when I run games, I run Greyhawk because otherwise I don't know what to do.
Well, I mean, if it's role playing in D&D, it's fun.
Yeah.
Right. Especially if you have a great group of people, and shared storytelling is just fantastically fun. And so, yeah, however you do it, I don't care. It's now I hope you fall in love with our new Greyhawk project.
Yeah.
buy 5 copies for you and your friends. But at the same time, we get to participate in something that is endlessly fun, creates new friends at the drop of a hat, and always different. What's not to like?
Exactly. I mean, I am really looking forward to stuff to bolt into my Greyhawk campaign, and something that's coming from I would say authoritative source at this point is really extra special. I mean, like Anna, I'll play in anybody's setting.
Oh yeah, I love to play in other settings. But often I used to prefer to play as a player in other settings, because if I played in the Greyhawk campaign like 20 years ago, I was like, oh, that's not what I would have done it, and I wasn't half as tolerant as I am today with people running games in a different way. I wanted to have it a certain way. If someone else had done a different thing, it was like, no, that's not how to do it, and I've sat there and tried to counter them. Now I know better. So I've evolved as a player much more the last 2 decades. But back in Sweden, back in the day, with someone else, oh, I'd run it in Greyhawk, and I just picked a place on your map or on the Darley map, and then start running. And I was like, no, that's not the way to do it. Now I can think that more as fun. It's like, oh, I would do it differently. But back then I was like that. I had a hang up on stuff like that. So that's why I usually prefer to play in Dragonlance or Forgotten Realms, whatever, made up world somewhere, and not have to worry about knowing too much or have preconceived ideas that was kind of wrong in this instance that we were playing in.
Yeah, as perma DM though, I mean, with me, it's like I'm like Red Skull in Infinity War. I guide others to a treasure that I can never possess. So if people want to play at my table, hey, guess what setting we're playing in, guys? Greyhawk. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. It's Greyhawk.
Yeah, but Greyhawk has so many great possibilities, right? I mean, you can play in 2 different Greyhawk games, and depending on where you set them or just the tone of the GM, they can seem entirely like different worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, because the world is Greyhawk definitely has aspects that come from that sort of pulp mindset of we're going to recreate the world for the history of our world, but make it amenable to our stories. Forgotten Realms has that aspect to it as well. A lot of game places do. So depending on where you set it, you can tell all sorts of different stories from your neighbor who's running, Forgotten Realms in the Sheldamar Valley, or Greyhawk in the Sheldamar Valley versus, in the land of the Snow Barbarians. Those are 2 very different games.
Yeah.
You got a massive we were talking about it earlier, a massive section of map that it is metaphorically and literally here be dragons.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, just
if you take the whole world, there's what is it, like 3 pages written about the rest of the world, tops.
Yeah.
Over 5 decades. So yeah.
And then the great thing about both settings, one of the kind of similarities between the 2 settings is you've got Lendor Islands, which was Len Loftica's stuff, right? And that's just kind of crammed in. Gary just, and the Moonshay Islands is kind of Doug Niles things that was just kind of crammed in.
Yep.
And so, as you sort of share your world, it expands based on other people's visions, and you find, the places where they belong.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting in Greyhawk, there's several places like White Plume Mountain that was written as an entry module, not set in Greyhawk at all, but that is being woven in and added, and all of a sudden that lore becomes part of the setting, and it becomes cool. And if over 50 years of publishing Greyhawk stuff, and fan stuff on top of it, things get. Acererak is another example that can be deeply integrated into Greyhawk setting and backstory, but it was not originally that way. Tomb of Horror is not originally a Greyhawk adventure, but it could be part of backstories and stuff like that, legends and whatnot.
Oh, and then even an expansion like Bruce Cordell, another friend of mine, he made it really weird. Right,
Yeah.
Return to the Tomb of Horrors gets funky,
Yeah.
and the way that Bruce can make things funky.
And Gary loved Return to the Tomb of Horrors. He wrote a glowing introduction for it.
Well, Bruce is one of the best in the business. He's really, really a creative talent.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying. I've got it. That's one of the rare things that I've got around here that isn't 1E. Is there are a couple of things by Bruce, and I know Return to the Tomb of Horrors is one, and I've got a few others tucked around on shelves.
My favorite Bruce story. Like, we're at Gen Con, I'm hanging out with Bruce. We're sitting in the Omni, hanging out with Scott, the guy who wrote The Lies of Locke Lamur. And we're just drinking and bullshitting. And all of a sudden, what's his name? Wesley Crusher.
Will Wheaton.
Will Wheaton. He comes over and he sits with us for a little bit, and he's got his wife with him and everything else. And he's going around the table and he's like, "Oh, I think Scott Lynch." He's like, yeah, I know you. And he gets to Bruce and he goes, "Oh," and Bruce is like one of the sweetest guys in the world, right? He's cool, he's humble, he's super talented. And he goes, "Oh, I'm Bruce Cordell." Will freaked out. "You're Bruce Cordell? You're Bruce Cordell who wrote this and this and this and this and everything else?" And like, he is just gushing over Bruce.
That's awesome.
And Bruce is like, yeah, and everything else. And finally, his wife is like, come on, Will, we need to go. Blah, 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 blah. And I poke Bruce and I'm like, "That was cool, dude." And he goes, "Oh, I don't think he was sincere. He's an actor, And I'm like, "Shut up." Totally just geeked out about you, man.
Oh my goodness. Here's one I wanted to ask you. And again, Anna, go first. Favorite, not necessarily stuff that you're working on right now for the project with Wizards. Favorite place in Greyhawk? City, kingdom, geographic feature, whatever. Favorite place in Greyhawk?
That will be my next campaign. I'm going to set in Selene, and I'm starting to work on ideas. And I want to do Elvendom in Greyhawk. So Selene is an underutilized area that I think has way more to tell than that has been told, so to speak. So that is an area that has so much potential that has only been hinted at, and meaning everything that is written about Selene is maybe 4 or 5 pages over 50 years at tops, so to speak. And so that is an area I would like to see way more of, and that's where I want to set in. I'm going to start in Selene, and then I'm going to go Wild Coast and over the Dim Forest and then to the Valley of the Mage and stuff. That is a campaign I plan to start in like 2-3 years from now. And
wow,
that is so I want to detail and that and hint. I'm already setting up ideas and been setting up. I started my Shieldlands planning for my Shieldlands campaign 10 years ago, and I started running it 5 years ago, and I'm still running it, so to speak. So yeah.
Follow-up question then. Given that you're going to be doing stuff along the Wild Coast in your campaign, had the yellow sails been risen? Has the party rebuked the slavers once and for all, or is there still danger from Drakensburg lurking in the Pomarch?
The slavers have been, in my take on it, have been subsumed into the Orcish Empire, so to speak. That it's a failed state. So it's like rivaling warlords, and so now there's a new sheriff in town, and of course he needs labor, so he doesn't have any problem with other people going out snatching bodies that he can put to in use in his realm, so to speak. But it's what the colors of the sails will be, I'm not so sure, so to speak. But
okay.
But it's so I've that in my campaign is we are now in 599 and first week of 599. So we just passed Need Fest 599, so early days in 599. So I will probably start. It will be kind of fun to start it on like with the New Year's kind of adventure or like festivities in 600, that will be kind of cool to see. But we'll see if I can wrap up Shieldlands. I'm stuck there for a bit, and because it's so much fun. But that's Celine and Elvendom is something I really want to take a deep dive into.
Excellent. And Stephen, how about you?
I like. So there's two places that I would really like to explore, and because I sort of like grit and devilry, divers. I would love to write the definitive divers. I think I would lean heavy on sort of noir and a bit of The Wire, maybe some Breaking Bad.
So do you see divers as a kind of the kind of auxiliary capital that then became kind of failed and
yeah. It's sort of the Baltimore of
yeah.
I would wish that on my enemy.
And in the Great Kingdom, I'm fascinated with one could say I live in one, sort of crumbling empires that sort of corrode into madness, and so they were both kind of areas that Live in Greyhawk strayed away from, and I kind of understand why. But yeah, I would like to take my crack at, maybe I just have a love of fantasy settings set in failed states, or at least failed. Like I would like the Great Kingdom. I'd be tempted to sort of lean into the Vlad Taltos sort of strain of stories as well.
Divers is the twin city that has never been talked much about. Greyhawk was the center, and Divers was the cousin next door that hasn't been talked much about. So
in Greyhawk definitely has its dirty side, but it's still the gem. This is like the tarnished copper coin of the Flaness, right? That's Divers, and so I do sort of see it as a Baltimore-esque landscape, and I'd love to sort of dig deep into the decay and despondence.
Yeah, I can envision Divers being like a great Vienna, a former imperial grandiose city that was built for a much bigger purpose than it currently has, with a lot of big old monuments and stuff, because it was kind of founded when the Great Kingdom had these enormous expansion, and it was the co-seat of an empire and all of that, and then faded away fairly quickly and stuff. So
right. Yeah, I definitely like.
It's an interesting place. It's cool.
Yeah, I love grit and grime and dirt in my settings.
It's funny. I've never been there in my games, but everybody just saying it's a hellhole, and I was like, okay. And then and I never believed them. And then I read the Gord books, and Gary talks about a Nero temple that he really details in the Gord books that is in Divers, and I was like, yes, that's cool. Yeah.
For me, it's just from a just sheer fascination and interest. It's the yeomanry. Because it's
politically,
it's a representative democracy in the middle of all this madness and fiefdoms and kingdoms and principalities and duchies and everything. It's a functioning representative democracy. I think that's kind of a cool thing to throw in there.
Yeah, it's also a state bordering wilderness and large mountains and stuff. So you have that hinterland out there where you can go and have all sorts of stuff. And it's the place where the Slow-Rolling Tunnel emerges, and there's other potential. So Yeomanry has some cool stuff there. And Living Greyhawk actually, one of the areas where I think they did, and you had Night Below is set in the area they shoehorned in there and stuff. So it has a lot of potential as well. Yeah.
Night Below might be Sergeant's best work.
Yeah.
Or no, is that the Carl write that one? or am I?
No, hang on a second. Let me come back. I can find out. But yeah, but it's good. Let me see here. Yeah.
But my Monday night group is doing the Giants series right now. I'm taking them through that, and I mean the yeomanry is literally right next door to the fire giant, the fire giant king. So they're kind of getting curb stomped by the giants just as well. So the party is definitely winning some allies by saying, "Oh yeah, we were up in the mountains."
Sergeant wrote it. Yeah.
Yeah, we were.
He designed it and editing. Yep. So it's his baby. Yep.
It's good. It's solid stuff.
And also one of these that I don't think was intentionally written for Greyhawk, but was a good fit and kind of took his place in Greyhawk.
Yes.
Speaking of things that weren't necessarily written for Greyhawk, this is one that I asked Gary himself about where in Greyhawk one might put Keep on the Borderlands. He said down by the Pomarge and no one of consequence. No, that I'm not making fun. That's literally the guy's username. No one of consequence said, "Isn't the yeomanry the suggested location for placing the Keep on the Borderlands?" Gary said, "Hey, I'd put it over by the Pomarge." But what do you guys?
In return of the
anniversary, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That return to the Keep on the Borderlands. That was that 25th anniversary. They named the keep and suggested a Greyhawk location in geometry, and they named it Kendall Keep. And if you go on my map and you look, there is a Kendall Keep there. So that is the Keep of the Borderland from the return, so to speak. But
I think the Wild Coast is a perfect place to put it. Yeah. That's one of the great things about Keep on the Borderlands is how many worlds do you think Keep on the Borderlands has actually been in? Right.
Yeah, you can put it almost anywhere. It has no geography reference in the original module at all. So
no, especially in the 80s, it's dotted countless of worlds that have now fizzled out and are long forgotten.
Yeah, I guess the official is it's Mystara. It's the keep because Gary mentioned the known world, capital K, capital W, in the introduction to Keep. So we ended up with, this is the known world campaign setting, and it just kind of grew organically out from the Keep. But yeah, I think it's probably kicked off, launched a million failed campaigns. But Rex Young said Baldur's Gate equals Seattle. I visited Seattle like 32 years ago, so I don't know.
I don't know. Waterdeep's a bit more like Seattle. You could say Neverwinter is. Baldur's Gate's kind of more like Portland. As somebody who grew up in that, or not grew up, but lived in that area for a good long time. The Moonshays are the British Isles, especially Ireland, including its the Viking bits of it as well. That's where that comes from. But Baldur's Gate is Portland.
All I can say is if you stick the near dive exactly where Lake Superior is in the United States and overlay the North American map. I live in central Hetmona land, so
you go. Yeah.
I'm way
like
down.
Stephen and me, we probably live in Sea of Dust. Then.
The Sea of Dust, yeah.
You guys are all beyond the crystal.
Right? So it's sort of a Sea of Dust out here.
Yeah.
Out in Joshua Tree.
Or the dry steppes, you can to either one.
Definitely dry steppes.
Yeah, that will be go up in Nevada somewhere, or yeah.
We're gonna have 90-degree days this week.
Mm-hmm. We're going to have when you have 90, we have 86 or something like that. We're 4 or 5 degrees cooler than you. Yeah.
Luckily, we're always about 10 degrees cooler than Palm Springs.
Then would be about I think we're going to get 89, 90 in a couple of days here. So yeah. Yeah, we're about
We're
5 degrees cooler than we are east of the Santa Ana Mountains, so we don't have the coastal cool, but we don't have the heat of Santa. We're in between the coastal cool and hell. They used to say we live in purgatory. So you have paradise in Orange County and hell in Palm Springs, and we live in purgatory. So we live in between.
Right.
Yeah.
we're going to get maybe a couple more weeks of really nice, like, you know, you wake up in the morning, it's 66, day peaks out at 85, and then it's just going to ramp up into summer here, and by the end of the
Well, you
summer
got that
we'll
humidity too.
Yeah, we don't. It's gorgeous. It's a bit of cloud in the morning, and then it's 80 degrees in the afternoon. It's fantastic.
yeah you step out of the house in August in Florida, and trying to take a breath is like inhaling a Buick. It's just it's not, you know, it's rough. It's rough.
But I love the heat. I grew up in the semi-Arctic or near Arctic, so I love the any day I'm not cold and wet is a good day. Yeah.
You know what? I grew up in Northeast Alabama, which had seasons. I think it snowed twice while I lived there, but still, man, heat, please, heat. I hate being cold. I hate being wet.
Yeah.
I'll deal with the hurricanes as they come.
Yeah, that Scandinavia
when
I literally lived a quarter up Greenland, as far north, so to speak. That was as far north as I lived. That was like halfway up Alaska, or even further north. So it was.
I love the Oregon coast. If I could live on the Oregon coast, I would.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's a beautiful place. So yeah,
just gorgeous, and even in the winter where the winds come in, and but. I'm even though I'm in the desert now, I think I'm a Pacific Northwest fella at heart.
I have a personal philosophy that is never live where you're 10 to 12 hour drive from the Arctic Circle. So I've stuck with that my whole life, and I've stayed warm the whole time. So it's worked out pretty well for me.
I think my record on ground is like 96 degrees north. That's as close to the North Pole I've been. So yeah.
So I would bet my last iron piece that you probably know about this, Anna. Stephen, I don't know if you do. Have you guys seen that excellent website that has a weather generator for Greyhawk?
Oh yeah, like, I've used it extensively. Yeah.
Insert coin, get weather. I really like that tool a lot.
As a young dork, I used to generate the weather using the tables in the Gazetteer.
It was a Finnish guy. He used the tables and he kept rolling on them, and then he made a website so where you can.
My players did not care. They were like, "Yeah, whatever. Where's the monsters? Where's the treasure?"
Yep.
For those of you who might be interested, if you haven't heard me talk about it before, there's the link in the chat. I will not mutilate that URL. You can just.
Yep.
I'm sorry. How's that?
Surpiekko.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
I'm not sure exactly what it means in Finnish, but yeah, I've been to Finland many times, and I can't say that I speak Finnish, but I can understand some of it, and I've been yelled at in Finnish a lot of times. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, of course, you know that now we're wandering a bit far afield here, but did you know that Mortal Kombat, the video game, is based on an old church song from that part of the world?
Oh, no, I didn't know that at all.
Finish him.
Oh.
I'm sorry, that was horrible. I am both sad and glad that Stephen wasn't here.
We have tough skin up in Northerners. We are Nordics. We are not easily to offend. It's hard to offend us. Yeah.
Excellent. Mikhail has a question here.
Yeah.
He says, with the new characters we haven't seen before, what kind of new things did you want to add to Greyhawk? Do their storylines simply expand on what's on there, or do they bring entirely new aspects?
I think it's a bit of bringing back some cool stuff that people know, and then deepen them, so to speak, and add extra flavor. And I've talked to less a lot, and we have discussed various other factions and other stuff that is going to be included in. And so it's a bit like bringing back some old favorites in new additional way, deepen them, and then sprinkle in some new cool stuff as well. But that is something Stephen can talk about way more than I can.
Stephen, with the new characters we haven't seen before, what kind of new things did you want them to add to Greyhawk? Do their storylines simply expand on what's already there, or do they bring entirely new aspects?
Yes and yes. I mean, I think in a lot of ways, we definitely want to expand on what's already there. But I remember when, I was coming up with the general storyline of the adventure, and I had an idea for what it's not quite the right term, but I'm calling it the big bad. And and through that discussion and brainstorming, we all just kind of went, "Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That's new, but it's Greyhawk, and it's gonna be fun." And so I think if anything, it's going to be a bit of both. There are definitely going to be things that surprise you, but not a jarring surprise. It's all like, "Oh, that makes sense. Oh, we might be in trouble." So, luckily, given sort of the pulp sensibilities and the tone of the setting, there's just so much thematically to play with. You got to get really weird and really kind of flipping bizarre in order for you to go, "Well, that doesn't belong in Greyhawk at all," right? I mean, this is a setting that has a crashed spaceship.
Two crashed spaceships.
Crashed spaceships, and and squid-headed people who are horrifying, and everything else. It's just about adjusting them to the setting. Like, like I said, anybody who gets mad at their neighbor for playing a tabaxian or a cat folk or whatever you want to call it, it's like, "Man, Gary put that in first." Anybody who looks at 5th edition and goes, "Attuning magic items, what the hell is that?" Man, Gary put it in there first. And so, as one of the co-creators and the sole creator of Greyhawk, with a lot of really talented folks adding on to it, there's a lot in there that you'd be surprised it's in there. So we're going to play a little bit with that, but it's all going to be kind of, I think we're all very interested in grounding ourselves into, at least, we can't ask him. We can ask Luke, but, Luke sees it from his own point of view. We're definitely keeping to the spirit of Gygax.
Yeah, and one of the assets of working in Greyhawk is that we have old legendary stuff you can draw on, so to speak. That's one of the assets, so that we should use it. But also that also means that we have to act responsibly, so we don't abuse it. So it's kind of it's tricky thing. But we try really hard to make it a worthy addition to what's been published for Greyhawk. So that's
Well, everything I've been hearing from you guys, and I mean, I'm not going to lie, I was super skeptical at first. I mean, because regardless of,
there's a lot of skepticism whenever you bring up the fact that it's a Wizards of the Coast product, right? But I can tell, I think it's pretty safe to tell you this is we said yes, but we get to do it our way. And WotC said okay.
Yeah, so far we haven't had any problems with any that has
Yeah,
anyone told us you can't do this, or you have to do X, Y, or Z. So yeah.
Right. We had goals prior to Wizards of the Coast deciding to publish this, and we wanted to make sure, because we were all invested at that point in time,
Mm-hmm.
and so we really wanted. We're like, Watson, if you want to do this, we've already done some things, and we want to make sure you're cool. And we brought all of those up, and they came back and said, "Cool."
Yep.
Yeah,
and also, meaning, Bill, it's kind of, when you say I was skeptic, that just means that you're a true Greyhawk fan, because the Greyhawk fans are always complaining about everything that TSR Wizards have ever done for Greyhawk, so to speak. That's,
at least ever since Greyhawk had.
Yeah, meaning
yeah.
The Greyhawk community is very, very accommodating and very tolerant today compared to what it used to be. So yeah.
Well, and I've told Stephen about this story. I've done a few fan modules set in Greyhawk myself that I give away for free. And one of them got into the hands of the Cannon Fire crowd. And just because I'm a narcissist, I went out, I Googled to see if the modules were floating around out there, who might be talking about them. And this was a few years back, and I found a discussion thread about one of them on Cannon Fire, and there were some guys absolutely wigging out over what I'd said and done in this module, and not in a good way. They were furious that I had said, "Oh, why is there a relic of Zanye in a ruined city in the Sea of Dust? Who is this guy? This better not be canon. And did Wizards of the Coast authorize it?" And I was, and I, like, it was years after the fact, but I thought maybe some of these guys are still here. So I registered and I said, "Hey, look, here's why this is, and this is why I wrote it that way." And I was in haste when I created this scenario, and I liked it. And as far as a faraway kingdoms item being in a city that's buried in a sea of dust, I've just got 4 words for you: Ark of the Covenant. So they chilled out pretty quick. I didn't think they expected the guy who wrote the object of their offense to just walk up and start calmly discussing it with them.
No, the Greyhawk community, nowadays we can calmly discuss things from time to time, but back in the day that was an impossibility. So yeah.
Well, part of that is just the way the internet runs, and part of that is fandoms. Anybody who, like, no matter what fandom you're involved with, there's going to be a toxic element. And we all have opinion. Like, we can love something dearly. Star Wars is a very good example. Have I liked everything that has been produced lately? No. But sometimes they surprise me. Andor surprised me. Rogue One surprised me. Maul, Shadow Lord, just surprised me. That's a fun romp. And even something like Star Wars, which I tend to unclench more about than maybe some other fandoms that I'm involved with. But it's when you love something and you've built a head canon and somebody shakes it even a little bit, and you can go into a safe space like an internet forum and just bitch about it. That's the whole thing about it. Is when I used to teach game design classes, I'm like, here's the thing about it: you guys are going to produce games, you're going to put them out, and the internet is going to tell you suck. And here's the weird thing about it: is those people telling you that they suck are some of your best customers. The ones that are most engaged, care the most, and everything else, and it's going to hurt your ego. But those are some of the guys that are some of the, ladies and gentlemen, who are paying your salary, who are making sure that you can do the thing. And quite frankly, put your ego away for a little bit, listen to what they have to say. Sometimes it's garbage, sometimes it's not. And try to, gain the best out of that criticism as you possibly can.
Yeah, meaning
the opposite of love.
Oh, sorry.
No, I was just going to say the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference.
Yeah. And meaning my maps, one of the main reason they're really good is that I got so much criticism over the years. And in the beginning, I even started, how can I use this to my advantage? And in the beginning, I took a little area and I worked for months and I read whatever, and then I tried to make the best map possible. And first I asked for help. The crickets, no one told me, they didn't say anything. And then, but after I published it, they criticized the hell out of it. So I was like, oh, put something half-assed out there, just put random stuff in there, and people criticized the hell out of it. I took that as my reading list, and that worked really well until I published and told on the forum, said, I'm doing it this way. And God, were they angry at me when I told them, when I thanked my biggest critics for being my best research helpers. And God, were they angry. Yeah.
The best way to get a right the best way to get a right answer is not to go on the internet and ask a question, because it'll sit there for years. The best way to get a right answer is to go forth and say, I think it's this, knowing it's wrong, because 20 people will be along shortly to tell you you're wrong and offer the real answer. Oh, they'll call you names and everything, but you'll have
but that worked well. And also over the years, I've kind of worked out the kinks, and that means keep polish on stuff, and eventually it will be better, so to speak. So it was like the first draft of a text is normally not good enough. You have to work on it. And meaning my fan-made Greyhawk maps, I've put up 10 versions of it. I've updated every year, the last decade, and then some. And I still have about 200 or 300 notes of changes that needs to be made. So for various things. So and added and typos and all that stuff. So I sit down and take about a month every year to update the map.
I like this comment. Wait, internet forums can be problematic. And I will respond. My favorite John Lennon quote is, there are no problems, there are only solutions.
Yep. I mean, it's an absolute truth. Hey, somebody, speaking of Greyhawk maps, Anna, somebody mentioned this last night when I was mentioning actually because Paizo did a 4-part Greyhawk poster.
I saw your little short. That was really good. Yep.
Oh yeah, you can still order it. You can.
Yeah, like they're $1.50 for the next 4 days.
They're great purchase. So you should definitely purchase them.
But somebody in the live chat last night said, wouldn't it be cool if, and I don't even know if this is possible, but somebody said, what about applying the Google Maps API to the Greyhawk map? So, you've got pins in there, and, you can go
I have the embryo of that running on a computer here in my office. Yes.
Really? Any chance?
Yeah, I have a Geo server. I have a Geo server running, and I have currently about a quarter of shield lands at 5 feet per pixel.
Wow.
Yeah, okay. 5 feet per pixel. Shield lands alone will be 1 million pixels, or a couple of 100,000 pixels from one to the other, so to speak. I calculated that Darlene map will be 22 million pixels from one end to the other at that resolution. And that's what I'm working at. I'm working at 5 feet per pixel. I thought it would be kind of a fun resolution to work, since normally you have 5 foot squares. So each square is a pixel, because that's detailed enough that you get trees and buildings and roads and stuff. You can see trails and things. Right. Yeah.
So question for both of you guys, and Stephen, I'm going to throw this one to you first. Do you keep World of Greyhawk as the open wilderness it is, for lack of a better term? It's like you zoom in, and I've got a lovely 576 map open here. Let's say between Crockport and Chendal, there's a blank hex. Nothing there, or do you have that completely filled in? Or not, do you have it now, but is that something you'd say, oh no, there's lots of towns and villages along the way?
Well, I would say it depends on where you are, right? I mean, So, for instance, this part of the Shield Land that I've put together, I see it as a little bit sparsely inhabited. It's definitely got some bits and pieces, but if you take a look at, you know, because I'm a medieval history nerd, if you sort of take a look at England during a comparable period, is you basically have settlements within walking distance of each other, right? And partially is that just the way humans migrate. It's all like a village comes together, somebody pisses off somebody in the village, they go about a day away so they don't have to deal with your garbage and they can have their own farm and everything else, and it creates a kind of network. Of course, that assumes you've got arable farmland and whatnot and everything else. I don't assume that for all places in Greyhawk, but yeah, I would imagine there are large sections of Valuna and Furiondi that a lot of those things have little villages and little bits and pieces and whatnot. And if you kind of read, you know, going back, because I just finished Artifact of Evil, Gary kind of had that assumption as well. He talks about all sorts of things that aren't on the map and little, you know, things on the edge of the Vespi Forest that, you know, I don't think anybody's actually tried to put on a map. I could be wrong. Maybe Anna has. But, you know, so it kind of matters where you are. People like to be close to other people, but just far enough where they don't have to deal with their garbage. There's some great studies when bicycles came to England that all of a sudden the genetic diversity increased by a good 30 miles, because instead of walking to the next village to find your potential mate, your potential wife or husband, you could take a bike and go farther and go like 2 or 3 villages out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it depends on where it's at, but I do kind of see large swaths of Greyhawk, and definitely the sections that we're writing in right now is there's a lot of empty space that has a lot of room for fuckery.
Yeah, a lot of room for fuckery. I like that. And how about you, Anna?
Well, we now we are biased because we live at the peak of human population. There will probably human population will probably peak in a few decades, and there will be more humans living now than it will ever be, past or present or in the future, so to speak. So it's interesting. There are about 8 billion people. We live in a place where there are people everywhere, meaning the Greyhawk population. Greyhawk is roughly the size of the lower 48 states with a little bit more water and stuff, but area-wise is like 3/4 roughly. And if you tally up the population, there's a couple of million, maybe 3 or 4, maybe 5 million people, and then add some dwarfs and halflings and some others. So maybe 10, 50, 20 million is high, so to speak. And that is kind of England and France and stuff were in medieval times kind of a little bit different from a lot of part of other worlds, because they were some of the earliest countries who had population explosion. Meaning, if you go back, most of medieval world had very low population numbers. You had areas where there were along rivers and places where there were good farmland, so to speak, where you could make a living and support yourself. And beside there was like enormous amount of wilderness that were a large part unclaimed. And that's the other thing is, like, in a fantasy world like Greyhawk, there's a lot of areas that are basically no one lives there. And then you have some areas that are almost overpopulated, that are highly civilized, and there's like a village every few miles, and in between there's like areas where people take their cows and sheep and grazing and stuff like that. So we live in an area that is so in an age where everything is touched by humans, and we've been everywhere, and the whole world is divided into countries and stuff. The fantasy world, maybe there are large areas. What if a red dragon moving in that mountain? He might control everything 100 miles. No one dares to go 100 miles close to, so they can even see that mountain. So there's like vast areas of wilderness, and the rivers are untamed and stuff like that. And then there are pockets of civilization, or even large areas of civilization, hundreds, even few thousand square miles, where people live and society thrives, and there's one big city and there's another one 100 miles away, and in between there are towns. In southern Shieldlands, where I'm running my campaign that I've mapped out over the last 5 years, I started in a small village that I invented called Alden, that is 55 miles away from Critwall. I have 26 places between that 55 miles is 26 towns and villages and little settlements and places on the map, so to speak. And it was kind of funny. It took 20 sessions to make that journey of 50 miles. That played out over a year. So when I run my sandboxy campaigns, I treat the whole outside as a dungeon, so to speak. So they go and visit every tree on the way, so to speak. So
Right.
it's very different. Yeah.
There's this. I recently read this. There's this wonderful book called The Frontiersman by Alan Eckert. I believe that's who wrote it.
Not familiar with.
It's a narrative book, but he takes all the narration from primary sources wherever he can. But it is basically about the early settlement of Ohio and Kentucky. And it's absolutely fascinating. You find out why certain cities are named the way they are, how they came about, how desolate in one way and how teeming with life in other ways that area of the country was. And if you go there now, it's just miles and miles of suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And it really kind of gives you a sense of what the population might look like in a fantasy world, especially with large stretches of inhabited frontier.
Yeah, and I've been fortunate enough that I grew up in an area that was a small town with like 1,000 people or 10,000 in the area and about 4,000 or 5,000 people in town. But you didn't have to drive far to get to a forest that you can walk for hours and hours, not see anyone. And also, large part of being Sweden is a country twice the size of California with a population of barely LA. And 2/3 of 3/4 of the people live in south of Stockholm, so to speak. So Stockholm and south. So 2/3 or 3/4 of the country has the population of our county spread out over bigger than California. So it's a lot of wilderness, and
that's actually one of the things that I kind of like about here as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, living in on the edge of the Mojave Desert, but I definitely like kind of the lushness of the Pacific Northwest. You can be in Seattle, and within an hour you can be in utter wilderness.
Yep.
You know, and I used to live in this place when I was working at Paizo in Redmond. That literally, it was the last sort of apartment complex before it just became the wily woods. And so we'd get every once in a while. I remember I got this thing from my apartment complex. It's all like, there are bears wandering around the apartment complex.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay. And I wanted to go to the store, but I waited for a little bit. I went out, and my neighbors were out looking for the bears. And I'm like, you don't want to do that. They're black bears. They're not brown bears, but they'll still mess you up if you.
Yeah, absolutely. They're 450 pounds. We have we are basically on an ancient path that we have a green space behind our house, and we have a state park on the other side of our subdivision, and we are in their way. They run through.
I live up the end of the street, 100 yards away. That's on the verge of Cleveland National Forest. That is like 100 miles long and what is it, like 50 miles wide?
Snakes and mountain lions.
Yeah, and so we get coyotes, and I haven't seen mountain lions here, but coyotes and bobcats and stuff. Or coyotes we see when I'm out walking the dog almost every day. And some of them look so starving, so they stare at you. I don't know. Sometimes they look like they want to be be domesticated, and sometimes they look like they want to eat your pets, so you don't know.
Evolutionary biologists have made a study and said, yeah, coyotes that are moving into suburb areas are trying to domesticate themselves.
Oh yeah, they're on their way to
They're
be domesticated.
literally trying to get adopted by you.
Oh yeah, definitely. There are some that looks like they want to, and they don't look hostile at all. They look like, oh, you have a pet, can you have me too? Yeah.
I mean, the funny thing about, like, you know, Paizo sat in this area of Redmond called Bear Creek, and everybody was like, why do they call it Bear? It's like, because bears live here.
Yes.
Well, so the reason, and it's good that we're talking about potentially hostile fauna. Here's at first, okay, so this is a little bit convoluted and twisty-turny, but I think as world creators, hopefully you'll appreciate where I'm coming from. One of my favorite not AD&D first edition games is Twilight 2000, which I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with.
Oh yeah, we played it. Yep.
Okay, so but like when I was a kid and reading Twilight 2000, it's like, okay, your unit is stuck in Kalisz, Poland, and you know, is your mission to try and make it back to the German frontier? And I was like, oh wow, you know, it's this vast enemy. It's from Kalisz to the inter-German rather the German border. It's about an hour and a half drive. It's a good 4-hour brisk walk. It's not that big. And when I was trying in my adult years to create a Twilight 2000 campaign, even if you take into consideration prior to the fall of the Iron Curtain, that part of Europe is very densely peopled.
Yeah.
Like the
Poland
idea of
is kind of, it was southern Poland, and southern Poland is not that dense. It's kind of on and off. Yeah.
But you know, it's like, okay, all right, this is cool. Here's a little village in real life. Okay. The next one is like 800 meters away, and the next one is like 1,000 meters away, and the next one is 600 meters away. So it was like this idea of it's more like a trip through the light suburbs than through this hostile land. But to what cured me of that was, Bill, nukes have been flying for 3 years. Cluster munitions have been dropped. Chemical weapons have been scattered.
There is a great frontline show that they did like a couple of years ago, 2,000 meters to Avdiivka in Ukraine. Watch that one and then play Twilight 2000.
I know.
That is the most horrifying war. And it's a documentary. It's not a feature film. It's a documentary, and it's horrifying. It's absolutely horrifying.
So if you live in Europe, and basically kind of a more concentrated part of Europe, and you know, Anna's lived in both the U.S. and Europe, but I had a friend from Barcelona who came down and he visited me in Seattle, and I took him on things like we went across the ferry and everything else, and he goes, I want to see the ocean. And I'm like, we can do that. And I drove him to Ocean Shores, and an hour and a half, 2 hours into the drive, he's like, when are we there? About half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's like, what? Really? You know, and then he saw the tsunami routes, and he's like, is that real? And I'm like, oh yeah, but don't worry about it, right? There's a tsunami.
It was kind of funny when I started playing Twilight 2000. I'd just done 2.5 years of basic training in the military, frozen my butt off. It was like, no, this is like work. I don't want to do this anymore. So this was But I must admit, the rules were really, really good. The rules were really good. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So the Greyhawk comparison then for me, to borrow a term from Twilight 2000, one of their source books about America, I think of Greyhawk as a howling wilderness. And here's the reason. Yes, it's very much like medieval Europe. And yes, as you say, an artifact of evil, Gary's got villages. In medieval Europe, they didn't have to deal with hostile, magical megafauna, right? I mean, your average English farmer was not going to have an ankh egg burrow up out of the ground, swallow a couple of his horses,
and wars that went on for decades, and political strife, disinformation, all the turmoil, meaning Europe, look at a map of the world and there's a black dot for every battle. Europe is completely plastered in, that is the part of the world where people have fought wars for centuries, millennia. And yeah.
And you know, and their bestiaries would disagree with you. And to change kind of, and in the power of imagination, to change your scope on that, I'm going to suggest a book, and it's called Between Two Fires by Christopher Buhlman. And it is history and horror and fascinating, very good read. But it will, like, part of it is we're all playing in something in imagination. The medieval imagination was incredibly intense, and I think that book might give you a different spin on it.
I mean, you look at medieval art. Go to the cathedrals and look at the monsters they made in stone or put out. It's awesome.
There's part of it. These people are actually, like, one of my favorite stories is the Black Shuck, and in England, it's an amazing. Like, this is where we get stories of Bargas and black dogs and everything. Well, it's one of the. There's many sources for it, but yeah, look up the Black Shuck and the very entertaining song by The Darkness called Black Shuck, and these people believed this, like, this was real to them, and of course, as more modern rational people, were like, what did these folks really see? But back in the day, this is what these people actually thought happened. And so, in a weird way, maybe kind of in a psychological mass hallucination, whatever way, or who knows what, like, they lived in that world. It was just as fucking scary.
Well, so, I mean, that's absolutely an interesting, and I never really thought about it. I just, the idea that, you're working in a monastery, you're illuminating books, you're bringing the word of God to people, and here come the Vikings, that
they come from nowhere, and you've never been more than 30 miles away from home.
Come from the land of the ice and snow, from the midnight sun where the hot springs blow, and they they run roughshod over you, but you didn't also have to worry about a type 3 demon just strolling through saying, I'm going to bend you into new and interesting shapes just because I can.
Without the narrator in, like, Umberto Eco's Name of the Rose, imagine if Sir Baskerville, or if Brother Baskerville never showed up, right? Those people would have been dead set that there was a demon stalking that monastery, devouring young monks. Like,
you make a good point, and that's one of my favorite books, by the way. I love it. It has a dungeon map in it.
Yeah,
it has a dungeon map in it.
And there's a good movie made out of it too. So
I love the movie.
Yep.
One of Sean Connery's best.
Yeah, I must say, definitely. Yep.
A fantastic movie, fantastic book. So, not to skate back too closely to business, but is there anything else before it slips my mind or anybody's? First of all, anyone in the audience, any questions you guys have got? You don't just have to sit here and listen to me annoy my guests. Feel free to ask. But is there anything else you guys wanted to touch on the project?
First of all, it's an honor to work on stuff like this. It's it's one of these on the bucket list. Yeah.
I've known Anna for a long time. Being able to work with her is absolutely fantastic. I love her memories. And and we've got Les and Jay Scott and Ewan and and of course Luke. It's just it's a fun team. It's a caring, talented team. When we argue, it's always we always learn something in the end. Yeah, it's a hell of a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, oh gosh, oh my gosh, it's almost it's coming up on 11:30 here on the right coast. I don't want to keep you guys too terribly long. We could probably go all night chit-chatting, but so is there a ballpark? When are we going to see this in stores?
That I don't know. That's above my pay grade. So yeah.
I know. The only thing I know is, I did my last pass on Act 1 of the adventure. I finished that today. And now I'm going through and doing my last scrubbing on Act 2 before I start finishing Act 3. And there's only 3 acts in the adventure. I know there's been, anytime I talk to Scott, the project manager, it's all like, so when can we have this done? And I'm like, as soon as humanly possible. There's, I've got other projects I want to get done as well. And it's always a great feeling to get, a big project like this off my plate. I think the goal is for it to come out sometime next year.
My guess too, but yeah.
My guess as well. I mean, given what, print runs and everything else. We're in May already, Jesus.
Yeah.
The older I get, the time goes by fast. It is my goal to hand over my complete work by the end of this month. Partially because I know it'll be helpful to the project, and partially because I've got other things to do as well, and I'd like some time to work on the prequels I talked about, even for my own good and whatnot. So yeah, I would imagine sometime next year, but I don't know exactly when. Knowing Luke, he'll probably try to pivot sometime around GaryCon. But if that doesn't work, there's other, there's other, Gen Con is always a date and everything else, but up in the air.
Yep.
So, as soon as we can possibly get it to you.
Well, I look forward to it, and the only other question I would have about it specifically is, can I get y'all's autograph on it when I get my copy?
Sure. We can hopefully arrange that. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, if I think if no one else out there in the audience has any questions, if anything else in parting you guys wanted to touch on that we didn't, we've covered European history, World War III, monsters,
great
cartography, terrible dad jokes that you weren't here to have to hear, Stephen. So anything at all? Well, we'll go ahead.
Thank you so much for the chance to come here and babble about Greyhawk. It's always great to do that. Yeah.
Thank you both very much. You'll come back, right? I can invite you guys back sometime.
Definitely. Yeah.
Good. We do so love talking about Greyhawk, whether somebody's got a really cool project or you just want to talk Greyhawk. We can do that.
Well, I've been doing Greyhawk for 10 years every day now, and I hope that I can continue to do it for some time to come. So, and now I'm working on more than ever, and thanks both for my patrons and as a big commission, and I also have another commission for Gamehole Publishing that I just started to work on as well. So it's kind of crazy times. I never thought I would be half as busy doing this. I thought that if I'm lucky, someone will throw a little bit of money after me, and that's what they keep doing. But you get a lot of work and a little bit of money, and that's what I'm asking for. So yeah, so it's fantastic.
Well, there you go.
I'm
and guys,
very privileged that I can keep on doing this. Yeah.
definitely check out Anna's Patreon. Again, it's listed down in the YouTube video description
Thank you.
right
Yeah.
below. You can go there, check her stuff out. And Stephen, I know we'll see you kicking around sometime in the not too distant future. So I will let you guys help yourselves to some baklava and schnapps in the green room. And I'm going to put these kids out here to bed. Y'all have an absolutely wonderful evening. Thank you for being here.
Yep.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Myself. I'm going to do this. There we go. All right. Absolutely fantastic guests. That was a blast. I'll be back tomorrow night, guys. This is our last week without our Sci-Fi Friday game, kicking off next Friday, S3 Expedition to the Barrier Peaks, because you get a little AD&D, you get a little science fiction, and it's going to get a lot weird, and I hope you guys will tune in for that. If you haven't already, again, please click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. Make sure it's that like top bell with the outline filled into. I don't know, YouTube messes with me all the time. Anyway, be good to each other, brothers and sisters. And you know what? If you're not good to each other, you will have to deal with the owl bear. Peace. God bless. Talk to you later.
Have you seen my owl bear? Here's to all the weirdos everywhere in the woods and in the air. Have you seen my owl bear? Should I shave off all my hair? Bobs are all around. Some live in tunnels underground. Some are fat, some are rich, some are sleeping in a ditch. Can you ride a crooked horse without a saddle way off course? Naked as a toad all the way to Smoky Joe's. Have you seen the little creep driving fast in his little green Jeep? He smells like fish and brandy, but his rotten teeth look dandy. Take me to the show, I don't care if fast or slow. From action flicks to dancing dicks, just take me to the show.